before the map defines it. You sense it in distance. Light stretches longer. The horizon refuses to end. There is a feeling of exposure, as if the land ahead does not intend to shrink for anyone. Silence thickens, and scale begins to overpower expectation. This is Alaska, the largest state in the United States, yet dominated not by cities, but by wilderness. Mountains rise abruptly, glacier carve through fjords, and forests stretch beyond sight. Here, nature does not frame the journey. It defines it. Glacier moves slowly through valleys and into open water. Snow grips the peaks long after seasons shift. The land feels alive, reshaped by ice and time. In Alaska, what appears frozen is always in motion. Rivers cut wide paths through untouched terrain. Wildlife crosses open ground without barrier. Human presence feels small, deliberate, temporary. This is wilderness measured not in acres, but in horizon. Leaving Alaska feels like returning to compression. Noise resumes. Edges sharpen, but perspective remains expanded. Alaska leaves behind clarity. That vastness humbles, and that true wilderness still exists, where land remains in control. This is Valdez, a small coastal town surrounded by towering mountains and deep Arctic water. Here, scale feels immediate. Snow-covered peaks rise directly from the sea, and silence lingers between wind and tide. Valdez does not sprawl. It stands compact beneath immense terrain. In Valdez, elevation and ocean collide without transition. Glacier descend toward fjords, and Waterfalls cut through steep rock faces. The landscape feels vertical and fluid at once. Stone above, water below. Connected by ice. The harbour feels small against its surroundings. Boats rest beneath peaks that dominate the skyline. Life here depends on water, weather, and awareness. Nothing about Valdez feels separate from its environment. It exists within it. Light changes quickly in Valdez. Sun breaks through clouds in sudden brilliance, then disappears behind mountain shadow. Weather moves with presence. The town adjusts rather than resists. Nature sets the tone. Leaving Valdez feels like stepping away from raw proximity. Few places hold sea and mountain this close. The town leaves behind a reminder that human settlement can exist at the edge of wilderness without diminishing its scale. Leaving the sharp vertical walls of Valdez behind, the coastline begins to widen. Mountains soften into forested slopes. The sea opens outward, breathing differently. The landscape shifts from narrow fjord intensity to layered island horizons and ocean mist. This is Sitka, a coastal town resting between dense temperate rainforest and the Pacific Ocean. Here, water and forest meet continuously. Mountains rise behind cedar and spruce, while the harbor remains calm beneath drifting clouds. Sitka feels enclosed, but gently. In Sitka, green dominates. Rain nourishes thick canopy, and fog lingers among treetops. The coastline curves around rocky outcrops and small islands. Nothing feels exposed. The wilderness surrounds without overwhelming. Sitka carries layers of cultural memory. Influences from indigenous heritage and Russian past remain visible in architecture and atmosphere. History here feels integrated, not displayed, woven quietly into daily life. Leaving Sitka feels like stepping out of a sheltered world. The forest thins, the ocean widens, but the softness remains. A reminder that Alaska is not only ice and stone, but also rain, wood, and quiet continuity. Leaving the dense coastal forests of Sitka behind, the green begins to thin. Mist gives way to open terrain. The land feels less sheltered, more exposed. Mountains rise again, but differently. Not carved only by ice, but shaped by eruption and force beneath the surface. This is Katmai, a remote wilderness where volcanic history defines the landscape. Here, valleys stretch wide and silent. Rivers cut through ash-shaped plains. And the environment feels raw, almost newly formed. Katmai is not polished. It is elemental. Volcanic peaks stand quiet now, but their presence remains unmistakable. The ground tells a story of fire, pressure, and sudden transformation. Nothing feels decorative. Everything feels consequential, as if the earth once shifted violently and simply never forgot. Rivers move through Katmai with purpose. Wildlife navigates open land without boundary. Here, survival is instinctive. The wilderness feels complete, self-sustaining, indifferent to observation, and entirely in control. Leaving Katmai feels like stepping away from something primal. The land does not try to impress. It simply exists, shaped by eruption, sustained by resilience. Katmai leaves behind a quiet realization that beneath the calm surface of nature, power always waits. Leaving the volcanic scars of Katmai behind. The land cools in tone and texture. Ash plains fade into fjords. Dark stone gives way to blue-white mass. Where fire once shaped the earth, ice now defines it. Quiet, immense, and patient. This is Glacier Bay, a vast coastal wilderness where glaciers descend directly into the sea. Mountains stand layered in snow, and ice cliffs rise like frozen walls above still water. Here, motion is slow but inevitable. Glaciers appear immobile, yet they move continuously, creeping forward, cracking, carving into the bay. Massive walls of ice fracture without warning, sending echoes across the fjord. In Glacier Bay, stillness contains force. Sound dissolves quickly here. Even the ocean feels restrained. The scale overwhelms perspective. Ice meeting water. Mountain meeting sky. Human presence feels temporary, almost incidental. Leaving Glacier Bay feels like stepping away from deep time. The image of blue ice lingers. The silence follows. It leaves behind clarity. That change can be slow and unstoppable. And that in Alaska, even what seems frozen, is always becoming something new. Before you see it, you feel the land change. Distance stretches longer. Air thins, and the world seems to reach upward. Shadows feel deeper. Horizons taller. There is a moment when ordinary scale disappears, and something larger begins to define the landscape. This is Denali, the highest peak in North America, rising over 6,190 m above sea level within Denali National Park and Preserve in Alaska. Here, elevation becomes the environment. Snow and stone rise beyond familiar proportion, and mountain dominates horizon, valley, and sky. At Denali's base, vast tundra spreads open, interrupted by rivers and taiga forests. Higher up, snowfields and glacier carve wide channels, reflecting light and shadow in a rhythm shaped by wind and season. The landscape feels alive, not static. Weather here is a force unto itself. Wind moves fiercely, cold descends without warning, and clouds often cloak peak and valley alike. Even on clear days, the mountain casts its own system, reminding every observer that nature here is larger than expectatio. Leaving Denali feels like returning from the edge of scale. Noise resumes. Edges sharpen, but the perspective stays altered. A reminder that some landscapes exist, not to be conquered, but to be witnessed. Not to be explained, but to be felt, against the quiet strength of stillness itself.